What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Mark my words, apart from being a seminal thinker and a slimy foreign artmonger, Vas Pretorius Deferens was something of an enigma to friends, enemies, and medical science alike. Allegedly, he was the proud possessor of either 3 or 4 perfectly formed testicles, which tourist coach parties of the incurably bicurious and naive were regularly welcome to examine upon a reasonable payment of corkage, just so long as they proceeded slowly through Vaz's open fly, at which point he invariably brutally resynthesized these tiny teeth into a sudden, playful, biting unity, normally after drawing a groper's attention to some trivial detail of architrave, weather, whatever. As advertised, I've completed my memoirs as a short story, a quite draining and frankly illegal process which necessitated breaking all 37 of the past Labour government's police and criminal justice acts. But in the name of mammon, what can one do? So it's all quite fascinating, and whilst I have no obvious quarrel to pick with any man's physique, with the sole exception of Eric Pickles, I mention these positively material facts to warn you that you've unadvisedly strayed from the path and night must fall. Keep up. You youngsters have a lot to learn, if only you pay heed. So let me confess, without duress, I can't really legitimately claim to understand Vaz's nature, despite the fact and source of endless gossip that we spent multiple lunar months engaged in a perfervid cohabitation in a Hoxton studio. Such was his delightful mastery of disinformation, dark propaganda and intoxication that I never managed to arrive at the final figure for his testes. Fleeting glances, all from dangerous angles, tentatively recalled that they were jet black, vulcanized, like his durable character. Whatever ginger evidence I have, I lay freely before you. There are only crumbs I spare, each liable to be snaffled up by a myriad of nocturnal beasts coming to life in the bracken and furze. But follow them as best you can. It's too late to turn back now. Alas, there are no garnished, spicy vol-au-vents to sustain you. You're in way over your head, I fear. Vaz's legendary libido was immune to entropy and ennui. His grinding demands were a continual worry. Unconcerned with tradition, expense, or, to be frank, practicality, I'd often discovered Dutch gentlemen's magazines of a kind featuring photography on great women, squirreled away in the oddest of places. I knew they were his as Superintendent McGregor, my old vice squad pal, since gone freelance, verified his inimitable paw prints. They were the good old days of covert cash transactions, my boy. Investigation also found disturbing designs and working prototypes for, shall we say, gadgets in many more than one of the 260 secret compartments of his private secretary. Now, I don't think for a moment Vaz's preferences particularly interest you. You've got enough on your plate as it is, looking at those dreadful holes in your worn-out boots. Are they hand-me-downs? And the sheer depth of the snow around here. But they do cast a slanted light on his brilliant criminal mind. And whilst it may be the case that you maintain that law is crime, and make no excuses, offer no apologies, Vaz will always be a veritable villain. Not in business practice, where all's fair and little love guaranteed, but in his damnable lack of honour regarding aesthetic criticism. Vaz's self-promotion, remarkable before he met me, became nothing less than lupine afterwards. For goodness sake, no. I wouldn't climb that tree if I were you. It's the first place they'll sniff out, silly. Do get a grip and take some responsibility for your plight. I digress. So I woke up one morning at a little afternoon to find an estate agent's clerk staring at me with undissembled fear. Back in the glory days of the great boom, you understand, when any property vacated before tea time would be occupied and fully furnished by Vespers at a 60% markup. On reflection, that stunt had so many of Vasily Perestroika Deferonovich's hallmarks: handcuff, treacle, an anaconda, a mousetrap in the first aid box. But how long had he been planning it? Before he met me, after what I said on demand about his precious book, Lionizing Andy Warhol, maybe it was thin skin or sheer caprice. It scarcely matters, does it? Pardon me. Oh, howling. I don't think so. No, my mistake. There it is, right behind you. I said, I reliably heard a week later through McGregor that he'd shackled up with Sir Hugh Corduroy in Belgravia. Nice but dim, a remarkable chap, Sir Hugh, could stammer incoherently in no fewer than 8 Arabian dialects. Gosh, Hottentot, Farsi, Yiddish, take your pick. He was incomprehensible in it. Anyway, as you may know, previously he was a respected patron of the arts, pillock of the church, a former director of the V&A, etc. Tolerated by peers, trusted by subordinates, feared by staff, a great Englishman. Before you could say the Duchess of Gloucester, he'd pen a more brainless Times Diary than Sir Roy Strong. No, trust me, I have clippings. In respect, it seems accumulatively predictable that a lifetime's of total emotional deprivation should have led him into Vaz's gingerbread parlour. Okay, pipe down, I'm telling my stories. Have patience, but yes, now you mention it, they're all around you. Man up. Where was I? Oh, of course, what followed was contemporary folklore. How Sir Hugh, through Vaz's Caliban arts, traded the Elgin marbles for Andean wood carvings of doubtful provenance. His Rembrandt sketches for an acrylic tennis racket pixelage. Cats and umbrellas also featured, if memory serves. That's right, created by a second-year art student, some sordid strumpet of no good breeding. His Vermeer for a breeze block and tarpaulin installation. His entire portfolio of primary shares for a chance to wrap the outside of Acton in back issues of the World of Interiors. Such insatiable insanity. Destruction ensued as night follows day. I fondly recollect running into him behind King's Cross one wintry evening in the company of a pretty young Wandervogel. That such a renowned member of Blighty's establishment should fall into rank disrepair. Honestly, one shouldn't laugh. I can still picture his ragged silhouette hunched against a brooding February sky, insipid light shining through his fallen arches, rain that spluttered from his choked guttering, and a colony of zoonotic bats hanging around uncomfortably in his cracked facade. He was totally spent, utterly ruined. Died late the next spring. Ulcerative colitis returned the post-mortem, although the cruel whispering whites opined that he was burgled to death. No, don't start running. That's what they want. They're simply waiting for it. Have you learnt nothing? That's better. Anyhow, after inheriting Corduroy's estate, Vincent Pietro di Fiori consolidated his much heralded Renaissance by leading a popular national crusade to recapture and repatriate all those treasures he himself had shop soiled to sell abroad. Amazingly, or rather inevitably, he once again came up trumps. Turned out clauses written in invisible ink were legally binding after all, on the principle of caveat emptor and tough titty. There never were any lawful chances to stop him after the bounder. He was consistently one step ahead. But after that carnival of criminality, nobody else even tried. He branched out, diversified. Pretty soon there wasn't a pie in the proverbial pantry, innocent of his thumbprint. His Tavistock Square pied-à-terre became Bloomsbury's swinging hotspot, precisely the place to discuss perspectives in post-structuralist criticism, have one's nipples pierced, take heroin overdoses, and play the cocoa futures market. Swaggeroos and mountebanks from 5 continents both there. Arbitrary girls, faith healers, nihilistic young rock stars, depraved airhesses with £1,000 orchids in their hair and the many faces of Satan tattooed the length and breadth of their inner thighs. All these were nothing more than local colour, background noise to VPD's glaring bray. Well, whistle if you must, by all means, and respect for trying, but do you really, even in your wildest dreams, think they appreciate Mozart? Oh, Vaz, I've met few genuinely great men, but only one Colossus. He became a cultural reference point, the zeitgeist incarnate. He was the opinion former's opinion former, intellectual fashion leader, international trendsetter, pathfinder and trailblazer. The new man, one of his wheezes, the new woman too, for that matter. The new world order, for all I know. He hasn't written to me recently. Rottweilers, eco-friendly washing powder, Porsches and red braces. You've never thought about it, have you? But red braces, like unavoidable diamond bullets of truth. The genius of the man, the anti-mensch, the monster. At his peak, countless leading institutions from the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons to the Bilderberg Group accredited him. He grabbed a canapé and a glass of Moet at a Soviet ambassador's daughter's 16th birthday party, Order of Lenin first class on his ample bosom, before dashing off to a debriefing with some CIA head of station behind Victoria Coach Station. Crikey, a wanky conceited cunt he may have been, but Vaz was paid a sum not unadjacent to £30,000 by sterling by a British Broadcasting Corps to propagate his philosophy for 1 hour every Monday morning on Radio 4's Today programme. The horror. The last time I saw Bad Perrier Difference was live on ITV Even News, barreling through Heathrow, reporters armed with the sacred light of truth, cowering before bodyguards, licensed to kill and armed with electronic cattle goads. It was only a week after the crash, I believe. He wasn't the sort of Johnny to hang around waiting for women and children. No, sir. Everything created as a sell-by date, he remarked, almost to himself before turning triumphantly to face down his inquisitors. I'll be back, he announced. Meaningful, pointed questions were being asked by then. Operation Scat came to light, and 50 fat, middle-aged merchant bankers awoke with headaches to discover the virginity's defiled. We, willy-nilly, his fake disciples, awoke with hangovers to discover our palates no longer smeared with the actual colours our eyes beheld. In order to have fun, one must at least retain a memory of youth. The rest you should know, and here we are. Well, anyway, those were the end of days, my friend, when the scary sable forest was just a distant inky line on the horizon, and many and sweet were the birds that sang. Well, I haven't time to stand here with you chatting all night, excuse me, but I'm a busy man. Yes, I'm sure I'd feel the same as you if I was as poor as you. I still maintain it's a lifestyle choice, so own it. Oh, come now, don't take on so. Here, you can have my handkerchief. You can't see in this light, but it's a red spotted jobby. Is there a safe route out here for you? Not really. I made an effort to assist with directions, but there are only breadcrumbs. I wouldn't pin too much hope on crumbs. Listen, if you just stop crying for a moment and let go of my hand. What's that? Yes, indeed, they've got big eyes, haven't they? Don't let them see that you're afraid, it excites them. Look here, I don't mean to be unkind, but sadly it's your own fault. In any case, I'm truly sorry, but it's survey qui per nowadays. Well, goodbye, Sonny, and yes, one chance to you too. I beg your pardon? Oh, supper time, I guess.